Hey guys, Scripture here with another video, and this one is a topic that I have not dealt with. It is controversial, but I also think there's some things that can be said here, and just sort of some common sense things that we can deal with over this. And it starts with Elon Musk. He vows to cancel his Netflix subscription over transgender representation. Musk has accused the streaming titan of grooming children with sexualized content in series such as Coke Chameleon and Strawberry Shortcake. Now, just to give you a glimpse into what he's talking about, this is the Strawberry Shortcake.
Correct response. Like cotton candy clouds floating in a blue sky. Banavi, tell us why you chose this delicious dress.
As a transberry, I love living out loud as my most authentic self. And I wanted to dress as bold and unique as I am, which, let's face it, is a tall order.
Now, I think it's important to understand here that Elon Musk went through this with one of his kids. And he was pressured and told everything was going to be fine, and told, all these things the doctors were giving his, I think, son at the time, who's now transitioned or whatever. He feels, looking back, like he was coerced into it. And, I mean, we've all heard the stories, right? Where the kid goes in for a consultation, and 30 minutes later they're being prescribed hormone blockers. So there are instances where this is being done very quickly. There's not a lot of oversight. A lot of people are... Here's the controversial thing about this is that no one wants to talk about, okay? And they won't admit it either, because the thing is like, if you have, for example, been abused as a kid, you, in a particular way, are encouraged to go through that so that you can feel normal. Not every single time, but a lot of the time. You are dealing with what happened to you, and somebody comes along and says, oh, well, this is the way to deal with it, is to change your physical self, and that's going to help the mental issue. I don't know that that's the case. I think that the self-delete rates are still pretty high, regardless. We also have many instances where there's regret, but there's the abuse side of it that never gets talked about. There's also the side of it that doesn't get talked about how many of these kids are on the spectrum. Somebody has to say it, guys. Some of you are going to be mad at me, but this is a fact. There is a lot of these kids are autistic. They're being taken advantage of. Some of them are even straight up downsy, and they're getting taken advantage of. And the other thing you have to factor into this, whether there's a benevolent side to this or not, the people that put a kid on, I guess initially that's hormone blockers and then it progresses from there, but they're getting paid. Every time your kid goes in there, they get paid, right? And that includes any country. Even in Canada, they just bill the government, right? So there is a monetary gain here to encouraging somebody to do this. Like, imagine, okay, I'll put it this way. Imagine you now have a customer for life, right? Essentially, right? You got a customer from the time they're 12, 13, 14 years old for the rest of their life, because they have to keep coming back and getting their prescriptions and doing this and getting checked on. And if they go all the way with surgeries and all this other thing, then there's even more monetary gain. And again, I'm not suggesting that everybody's in that boat, but if that's an available source of income, there are going to be certain people, doctors or otherwise, that are going to take advantage of that. That's how the world works. And this kind of feeds into this idea that our culture is being inundated with this idea that scientists and doctors know everything. Okay, fine. They know everything, sure. But what's being sort of pushed to the side is the fact that these are human beings. Human beings can take advantage of other human beings. Just because you're a doctor or a scientist doesn't mean you can't lie. It doesn't mean you can't exaggerate. And it doesn't mean that you're not looking for a financial windfall. It doesn't mean you are either, but it definitely doesn't mean you're not either. But we've got this idea, some people have this idea that there's no possible way that they would put a kid through that, without going through the proper channels and doing all this stuff. But again, we do hear stories that it's a pretty quick thing. Then you factor in the narcissist parent. So the parent who, and we've seen this on Twitter many, many times. The parent who, for example, the one lady tweeted, I'm so happy that my son's transitioning. I always wanted a girl. Well, the kid looks like he's on the spectrum. I don't know for sure. And why did you want a girl so bad? Like, what's with that? It gives you this view that some of these parents are living vicariously through their kid. Maybe they were unpopular in school. Maybe they were never the beautiful model woman that they thought they'd turn out to be. And so now they're going to foist that on their kids. This is not that hard to figure out. Parents do stuff like this all the time. I don't mean the transitioning thing, but parents try to push their dreams on their kids all the time. All the time. The last few years I played hockey, I hated it. But I was really pressured because it was my dad's dream. And for a while it was kind of mine, but I didn't really love it. But he really pushed me to continue. So, and I'm not saying that to bash my dad. He's a wonderful man. Great father. But even in that context of a loving great father, you can have parents who push their dreams or their wants on their kids. This is not abnormal. So is it possible that a parent could see their son or daughter and say, oh, I wish I had the other one, sees this avenue as a wide open space to make that happen, and then they begin to encourage their kid, who, of course, for the most part, really just wants to make their parent happy. So they're very easy to manipulate. So there's all that to say Elon Musk went through this. And he has some regrets about it. He's not happy about it. So this is somebody on the inside. He also worked with Netflix. I think he had 2 documentaries on Netflix. So this is an inside guy. He's a part of all of it. Elon Musk is urging his audience to cancel their Netflix subscriptions. Musk has spent much of the past 48 hours blasting Netflix to his 227 million followers on X. In a string of posts, the ex-owner and Tesla CEO slammed the streamer's alleged promotion of a transgender agenda, citing supposed sexualized content for kids in shows like Co-Chameleon, Strawberry Shortcake, and The Babysitter's Club. Vanity Fair has reached out to the creators of all 3 for comment. And I guess up to this point we haven't heard from them. Musk is the father of 14 known kids, including Vivian Jenna Wilson, who has been financially independent from Musk since she came out in 2020. And she spends a lot of time, I don't know if a lot of time, but I've seen a bunch of clips of her ripping pretty hard into her dad. And I just wanted to add to this, okay, what ends up happening, okay, and this is anecdotal, but what ends up happening is it becomes all that matters. So, for example, when I was the manager of a fast food restaurant, one of my supervisors was talking to me about her niece and how her niece was being encouraged to go through this, and her mom was helping her go through this and transition and all this stuff. And this is 10 plus years ago. And she told me that every time they got together, the whole focus was on that. If you accidentally used the wrong pronoun, big trouble. If you didn't say all the right things, big trouble. If you didn't encourage it, big trouble. If you didn't talk about it all the time, big trouble. It seems to take over their whole life. And because it's attached to this idea of identity, they tend to make that their entire identity. Like, I'm not going to be okay until I do this. I'm not going to be okay until I do this. I'm not going to be okay until I do this. Once I do all these things, then I'll be okay. And so it does become all-encompassing. And you can kind of see the difference between a grown adult and a kid. Like when Bruce Jenner did it, Bruce Jenner didn't change as a guy, as a person, I should say. He didn't change. He physically changed. But his worldview and his political views and his views about pretty much everything other than that remained intact. It didn't completely overtake him, or her, or whatever. But at the time, he did what he did, but he was a grown man. Very, very different than a kid whose brain hasn't developed yet. Those are 2 very different things. And I think that's part of the reason people get upset. And again, he's the prime example because he pretty much is the same. He just looks more female, I guess, right? That's as far as it goes. And Bruce Jenner does not get angry at people for disagreeing with him. He doesn't get mad if you don't use his pronouns. He's living his life. He's a grown man. He's not a kid who's impressionable and having this become their entire scope of thought. And I think when it is your entire scope of thought, that's where you get people who lash out and get very angry at people on the other side saying, whoa, we don't approve of that. Because if it's everything to you, it's everything to you. And so if it's your whole identity and you don't identify as anything else, compassionate or somebody that, whatever it is, those things matter, but they don't matter nearly as much or at all in comparison to going through the process and having people tell you you are this thing that you want them to believe you are. Cancel Netflix for the health of your kids, Musk wrote on October 1st, retweeting a meme showing Netflix hiding a transgender woke agenda in a Trojan horse entering a castle labeled Your Kids. In another post he wrote, Netflix is deliberately choosing to pay people to create actualized content for kids. Freedom of speech should be respected, but this is paid speech. Netflix is going out of their way and reaching into their wallet to push this. He also accused Netflix of grooming kids with this clip of Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City, featuring the cartoon depictions of drag queens. Okay, we already dealt with that. Cocomelon features interracial A-dads attempting to raise a baby as trans, who make the toddler dance for them in... What?
It's gonna be a great day on Cocomelon Lane.
Thing that we know about you, you love to get up and dance. Just be you.
Just be me.
Okay, I didn't know about that one. That's pushing it to another level. And you know what? I'm going to give you guys a good example. This is why I'm actually thinking of doing a podcast. I have a lot of information and life experience for my age. There's a guy out there, and his name is Walt Hayer. Okay, and Walt Hayer has an organization now, and he tries to help people accept who they are. And he has a YouTube channel, and he's actually seen and been a part of even the L's and G's moving on from that lifestyle, and some of them have even gotten married and have kids and everything. And the reason I bring him up is because when people point to me and they say, well, you don't know anything, you're not a doctor, you don't know this, you don't know that, I say, okay, fine. Go research Walt Hayer. Walt Hayer was encouraged to do that very thing, dance around in a dress, for his grandmother. His grandmother used to take care of him when he was a little kid. She did that for quite a while. He grew up, he became an adult, and had tendencies a certain way because of it, and because of her pumping this into him that he was a girl. And so he, in his adult life, went through a transition. And when I say he went through the whole thing. Like, he's castrated and everything, okay? And you can look him up and look at what I'm saying. And he lived like that for, I think, about 15 years. During that time period, towards the end of it, the last few years, he decided to go back to university, and he went into a psychology course. So he got his PhD in psychology. Sorry, not a master's, he got a PhD. And while he was getting his PhD in psychology, he realized he had a mental problem. Those are his words. He realized it. And then he detransitioned. Now, of course, he's castrated, he can't have kids, he can't do anything. But the reason I bring that guy up is, go argue with him. Because he did all this, and he's a PhD in psychology. So do you think that he would know more than the doctor who prescribed puberty blockers in under 30 minutes of meeting a kid? A PhD in psychology? I would say probably. I would say yeah. Because he's dealing with... A general practitioner is not dealing with the mental side of it. He's PhD, guys. You can't argue with him. So when people argue with me about this topic, I just go, hey, go over there. Go argue with him. Because he's been there, done that, been through it, got the PhD, figured out he had a problem. You gonna argue with him? I'm not. But this is bad, because this reminds me, this dancing around thing, this reminds me of him and what his grandma was doing with him. Putting that in a show and sort of minimizing the damage that can do to a kid like him is wrong, as far as I'm concerned. Libs of TikTok targeted a clip of Netflix's Dead End Paranormal Park. The animated series, which was canceled in 2023 after 2 seasons, featured a trans lead character played by trans actor Zach Barrick. I am a really lucky person with a big world full of friends and family and love. In a world that looks like this, I don't have it in me to be angry or resentful. said Barack in a statement to Vanity Fair. In a sea of people telling me I should self-destruct myself or hate me, I only feel lucky for what I have. I hope everyone gets some sleep and eats well. Is that true? Is that actually true? I mean, I could see in person somebody maybe saying that, right? I'm sure there are people out there that would do that. I don't think you could do it online. That would be an incitement to violence, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be illegal? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section. I could be wrong there. Yeah, I think there probably are some people that would say that, for sure. But at the same time, we know we have basically the same rates of self-destruction even after the transition. We also know that a huge percentage of these kids regret it and want to go back the other way. So, yeah, that sucks, and I don't agree with that. But I don't think that's the big picture. I don't think that's the big picture. Like, if you are mentally stable and somebody tells you to go do that, you're not going to do that. If anything, if going and doing that because somebody told you to is all that it takes, then that just confirms that you definitely have a mental disorder. And Walt Hare would agree with me. In fact, that's where I got the information. So, yeah, that's bad, but that's just surface level. It's not dealing with the real problem. Benny Johnson said Netflix is sexualizing children by packaging explicit graphic radical X topics as children's entertainment. What Netflix is doing goes beyond a culture war fight. It's immoral. Should be illegal. Rob Schneider also got in there. He's not a fan. His daughter says she's been relentlessly harassed by Musk as a child for exhibiting femininity and queerness. You know what this sounds like to me? This just sounds like all those cases you hear about where the moms, like, he's got 14, he's not spending a whole lot of time with his kids probably. I mean, I could be wrong, but like, you have 14 of them by how many different women? 6? So this just sounds like the dads where, we've all heard about it. There's a divorced couple, the mom's going through the process and the dad's mad about it. He has no say, he has no involvement, and he's mad. Whether or not that means he was harassing her directly or her mother, we don't necessarily know. And I'm at the point with people, like, that could very well be true, but I don't take people's word for it anymore. Because so many people make these claims and there's never any receipts, so you're just kind of like, eh. And maybe there is. He claimed in a July 2024 interview that he lost his son after Wilson transitioned. Musk also alleged that he'd been tricked into approving the gender-affirming care. That's what I was saying earlier. Saying that Wilson is now killed by the woke mind virus. Hormone injections cause extreme emotional volatility, Musk said. That could be true too. I don't know. I don't know for sure, guys. I'm not, privy to that information. Let me know in the comments section. I will say that you do see a lot of unhinged videos from some of these people on TikTok and even out on the streets and stuff where they get extraordinarily angry because somebody says they don't agree with it. And again, I'm not condoning the people that tell people to off themselves or the people that are being really vile either. There's no condoning of any of it. But you do get the impression that there's an underlying mental disorder, and I don't know if transitioning people makes it better or worse. Like I said, if somebody's as old as Bruce Jenner was, his brain was fully developed. Young people, I don't know, I feel like it would probably just make it worse, wouldn't it? I mean, I don't know. That's what it seems like to me. That's what Walt Hare says it does. Just saying. And he also talks about autogynephilia. A lot of these men that are using the term transgender for themselves are just dudes who like to dress up in women's clothes and get turned on by it. That is a real mental disorder. He's written about it. He's studied it. He's got a PhD in psychology. But now they can use the trans monicum so that people don't see it that way. Oh, well, he's just really a woman. Well, no, he's just a dude who likes to dress up in women's clothes because he gets turned on by it. I'm not saying they're all like that, but those are out there too. But they are lumped into the, quote, trans community, even though they're literally just men dressing up as women. They have no interest in becoming women, like actually. Musk shared another Libs of TikTok post this week, which claimed that Netflix amended its cultural memo in 2024 to include a statement about representation both on-screen and amongst its employees. Our members come from many different backgrounds and cultures, and they want to see a wide variety of stories and people on screen. Reads the section titled Artistic Expression. In part, this diversity is wonderful, and it can create real tension since we all have such different views about what's acceptable and what's harmful on TV. We support the artistic expression of the creators we choose to work with. Different views about what's acceptable and what's harmful on TV. Different who? Are you saying society or the people within Netflix? Because the people within Netflix seem to all be veering in one direction. So that doesn't seem like a super diverse group of employees, or the ones that view things differently are just have no power and no say and are just silenced, right? That's what it looks like, because it certainly doesn't seem like they have a huge variety of views. It seems pretty one-sided. We support the artistic expression of the creators we choose to work with. As employees, we support these principles even if some stories run counter to our personal values. In other words, you don't get a say if it runs counter to your personal values. We're going to do what we're going to do, and if they run counter to your personal values, well, then that's the way it is. And we understand that depending on our roles, we may need to work on TV shows, films, or games we perceive to be harmful. Wow. So they're saying that if you don't agree with what they're doing in a show, having a 7-year-old girl dance around in a dress and promote transgenderism to 7-year-olds, like we just talked about in that Kokamini or whatever the heck it's called, which happened to Walt Heyer, you're saying that you are forced to work on them anyway. Oh, if you'd find it hard to support the breadth of our slate, Netflix is probably not the best place for you. Yeah, well, there you go. So they're saying this is what we do. Another thing that we have to talk about with this, guys, we have to discuss this, is the amount of celebrities with transgender kids. Some of these kids were adopted, but it does seem like a lot of celebrities, a disproportionate amount of celebrities seem to have transgender kids. And one of the names that's not on here is Megan Fox, who apparently all 3 of her kids. But you can see this is she adopted hers and then foisted this on them because they're little kids. They're like 8 years old when they start. So all it takes is a parent is to say, nah, don't worry about that. You're good, right? Without the adult, it doesn't happen, right? The other thing that's really weird is you look at somebody like Jennifer Lopez and she's, what is it, Balenciaga? And remember a few years ago they did that really disgusting series of photos that were really creepy and weird. I'm not going to show them. They involved kids, or at least mannequins of kids. But this goes back to what I was saying at the very, very beginning, that there is a percentage of these people that were abused as kids. 100%. 100%. It doesn't get talked about. It gets avoided. Nobody wants to talk about it. But that'll screw you up. That'll really screw you up in your brain. It's the worst thing you could do to a kid. I would argue it's even worse than beating them. That's really bad too. But I think the other type of abuse is even worse. Okay? So, all that to say, here's Netflix. This is their own thing. And they're showing you that this is something that they're very interested in promoting. You got to ask yourself certain things, like, for example, with Will Ferrell. So Will Ferrell's been an A-list actor for a very long time, or at least comedian, right? He's done some really big comedies. For all intents and purposes, he could have kept doing movies, but he decided to do a documentary touring around America with his friend who decided to transition. So, I mean, if you're Will Ferrell, why would you go and do this documentary with this guy? There's only really one reason to do it, because it's like, hey, look at how great it is, right? Okay, fine. But in that case, it's a grown man. Ellen Page or Elliot Page or whatever, grown person. I don't care. If you're an adult and you want to do that, whatever. It is what it is. The problem is they went into the kids shows. Remember Cuties? A lot of people canceled Netflix after Cuties because it was pretty ridiculous. And I always wonder, like, how could you make something like that? Like, who could make that and be like, oh yeah, this is good. Bunch of, little girls twerking in the camera and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just, you'd have to be a weirdo to make that show, in my opinion. That is the only way it gets made. So this is their 16 shows, okay? And a lot of them are kids shows. Big Mouth, which, by the way, is just putrid in so many different ways. The series' first trans character, Natalie, is bombarded with invasive questions like how she goes to the bathroom and criticized for not dressing like a real girl. She doesn't take any of it, and instead educates her fellow campers on her identity. See? That's pretty clear. She's educating them. This is their website. Oh, and she has a feisty attitude and a love of profanity. Oh, that's nice. I guess technically it's rated mature, but when you look at it, I mean, really? I'm a grown man. I would never watch that show. Okay, then there's Sense8. Okay, those are adults, whatever. House of Flowers, another one where they got... Anyways, whatever. Rocco's Modern Life, Static Cling. TVY7. So this is for 7-year-olds. Yeah, 7 and older. This is what everyone's complaining about. This is what everyone's talking about. And I know this has been out for a while, but people are discovering it because of one particular show. Rocco's Toad neighbors, Bev and Ed Bighead, are in for a surprise of their own when their child comes out as trans. That's for 7-year-olds. Again, if you're a grown adult, whatever, but Umbrella Academy, Disclosure. This is for 14-year-olds. They got another one. PG, documentary short, follows Australian trans rights activist Georgie Stone as she prepares to undergo gender-affirming surgery. Flashes back to 18-year-old Stone's childhood and early teens when she became an activist for trans youth, motivated by her own struggle to access hormone treatments. Her family, friends, and medical team form a crucial circle of support. Well, she was a kid. She's being encouraged by them. That's PG. Here's another one. PG-13. Okay, whatever. This one's another one for 7-year-olds, like Wendell and Wild, Dead End. Oh, man. His parents don't stand up for him when his grandmother won't accept his transition. See, that's the big one there, right? He's going to school, right, probably, right? Or, like, that's the implication. Somebody's telling you this is what you need to do. Your grandmother doesn't accept it, and your parents don't stand up for you. Because that is standing up for you. Letting you do that as a kid is standing up for you, not affirming who you really are, right? Or how you were born, right? So that one's really bad in terms of how that would impact little kids. This is just... I'm sorry, but when it's old guys, I just can't. Okay, so there's a bunch of them. This one coming up here is from a while ago.
On the file for a Bailey Del Vecchio. Is 32 Burn Hill Road still the current address? Yeah. Have you been giving him fluids? If he's dehydrated, we'll need to place an IV. Have him change into this. Well...
I hear Solo's not feeling well. Let's take a look at the little man.
I know that you guys are busy, but as you would see, if you looked at her and not her chart, Bailey is not a boy. And by treating her like one, you are completely ignoring who she is.
And what's crazy about it is the kid in it is literally like little. Like that looks like Dakota Fanning when she was doing movies with like Denzel Washington. She looks like a 7-year-old or something, or 6-year-old. And it's a boy who's transitioning? Like, guys.
You're making her feel insignificant and humiliated. And that's not gonna help her feel good or safe or calm. So from here on out, please recognize her for who she is.
And then the little girl gives the doctors crap. Like, people need to understand, right? Like, medicine is based on human biology. Like, if you give somebody with XY chromosomes a drug that's for XX people only, it can cause huge problems. Like, medicine has to be treated that way, or you're going to run into problems. But here's this self-righteous 14-year-old telling the doctors where to stick it because she's been told to think like that. It's crazy. But this is the tweet that got everybody, or the show, I should say, that got everybody hot and bothered. This is the one that got noticed and was passed around a lot and kind of spurred people to look into this. So they have a dumb lesbian kiss. Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. It's rated 7 and up, but could be frightening for small kids. Okay, not only frightening, it's dealing with mature themes. Okay. So this is the guy who made it. So I created this show before handing it off to an incredibly talented group of writers and animators, and no one was trying to push anything on viewers. We're just trying to dramatize a full range of human experience, which includes the same-sex relationships, that's all. Okay, so this is the problem, though, that you guys don't seem to understand with general society on the whole. this may be something that occurs. And of course, it's occurring more and more all the time. We're talking like something like 30% now of girls in high school identify as LGBTQ. Now, that's totally natural. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But anyways, let's say that it is. These people look like young adult teens age range. And so somebody will say, well, it's the Christian conservatives. It's all those Christian conservatives that don't like this stuff. People need to wake up to the reality of the situation. I have a lot of friends that are very much not Christian, and they very much don't like this for their kids. They don't like them teaching it in schools. They don't like it. You don't have to be religious or somebody who's a Christian to think that, or Muslim or whatever, to think that you shouldn't be pushing this stuff on kids. You don't. Lots of people that have no religion at all very much despise this. And if any of you have ever been anywhere outside of your bubble, you would know that. Okay? Whatever you think of it, you might think it's great. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is this idea that everybody on one side is obligated to support. There are plenty of liberals that are not into this for kids. Plenty. But they try to present it like it's like the only people that don't want this are these crazy Christian conservatives. And then they'll throw in like the Christian nationalist moniker. They're the ones that don't want this. They're preventing our kids from being happy. And yet the depression rates are still through the roof. It doesn't make any difference. And then somebody tweeted, they showed a picture of all the different Disney princesses and all the kisses. They said, oh, wow, what's wrong with that? You think this is an adult thing? No, that's not the issue. See, most people view a major part of life having a family, a nuclear family, despite these guys' best efforts to make it seem like that's not the best way to go. That is most people's view. And when a Disney princess has a kiss with the prince at the end of the movie, this is a couple. They're in love. Most of the time they're soon to be married. Sometimes they get married in the show. And they're moving on with life and setting up their nuclear family. So a lot of people see that as a positive because it's showing kids that, hey, this is what happens. You find a man who loves you. You find a woman who loves you. You make sacrifices along the way. You fight for each other. You love each other. And then you end up together and you start a family. That's the general consensus. None of these shows are promoting that. They're promoting just do this other thing. And in reality, in the real world, most of these people that transition are never having kids. The vast majority are never having kids. Now, you could argue, some people will argue that hormone blockers only take you so far, and you can go off of them and it can reverse. That's true to a point. But even then, your risk level of not having kids goes up. And it's certainly once you get into the next level of drugs after that, you're definitely not having kids. And the thing is why are you taking hormone blockers if you're not intending on doing the next step? Because it's a step in the process. Why even bother with the first step if you're not going to get to the second, the third, and the fourth? So that's what I'm saying. Most of these people will never be able to have their own children. And people say, well, they can still have a family. Okay, but they can't have their own kids. And a lot of them look back and wish they hadn't done it for that very reason. So that's why people are mad. And that's the difference between the two situations. These two women cannot have a child. It's not possible. So parents don't want to see this being encouraged in their kids' lives. That doesn't mean, two adults, whatever, go ahead. I don't care. In fact, some of the nicest people I met were gay people and lesbians. But this is for kids, for 7-year-olds. And that's exactly what Zach says underneath here. He says, conservative Christians, I say sincerely that the only thing I am trying to push on your kids is you are stronger and smarter and braver than you realize. That has nothing to do with kissing girls. Believe in yourself, take care of your friends, and help others, and animals too, where you can. What does that have to do with kissing girls? You can present all those things without having girls kissing in a 7-year-old show. But the thing is this is the scapegoat that they use. They always have the blame to go towards this particular group of people. But that's not the only group of people that disagrees with this. It's not. There's a teacher that teaches at the school, the local school over here by my house, okay? She lives on another street over here. And they just hired a trans man, or man to woman, to be a teacher. And apparently they're demanding their pronouns and this and that and demanding the kids do this and that. She's not a Christian and she disagrees with it because they're little kids. But she also saw the way that the school was influencing her daughter. The whole thing comes down to this, kids, because when you are trying to get kids to see the world the way you want them to, which many people view as negative, you're dealing with people that are very heavily influenced by the world around them. They're spending a huge amount of their time away from their families in public spaces, in public schools. And for you to be encouraging that when they're that young and that impressionable makes people mad. And again, we went from like 1.5% in the year 2000 to over 30 for females in schools now. I think the boys are at like 12. Oh, but it's just because it's more accepting now. But think about it logically. And that number continues to go up. That's like saying that no one would be here. Bill Maher even did a segment on this, and he said at the rate we're going by 2050, everyone's going to be gay. Well, that doesn't sound natural to me, because then no one would be here. So you have to admit that there's a level of influence going on, and when it's happening in schools, and then it's happening when you get home and you're watching Netflix, and it's happening when you're walking around and there's LGBTQ flags literally everywhere, you're just inundated with it, it's going to influence you. It's going to influence you. You know, certainly a little kid. An adult, maybe not so much, but a little kid, absolutely, it's going to influence them. And that's the problem. That's the mistake Netflix made. So they've lost 5% of market share, which doesn't sound like a lot. It's $15 billion in reality. Like 5% doesn't seem that bad, but it is. It's bad. And I suspect it will continue to go down because they've lost trust now with a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that just aren't going to care. They're just going to keep it and whatever. But there's a certain percentage of people, I don't know what it's going to be, that are going to get rid of it. They should have gotten rid of it years ago with the whole cuties thing. I think before that they did like a gay Jesus thing, like all these weird things that just seemed to be being put in there just to piss people off. Like it seemed to be what they were doing. And now with this, though, they've taken it to another level. And now Elon Musk feels personally affected by it. And when Elon Musk tweets things, things happen. Sorry I rambled on for so long, guys, but I wanted to sort of give the spectrum and help everybody understand like the level of the various levels of this and how they're trying to simplify it and dumb it down when it's a very complicated issue. And there's a lot of factors from doctors to parents to schools to Netflix to this to that, all of them combining for one certain perspective to be displayed, while at the same time rejecting other perspectives. Like, you can talk about Christian conservatives all you want, Zach. You're never going to do a show that appeals to them. Again, if you're an adult, you're free to do what you want, but keep the kids out of this stuff. Nobody wants this for kids. It's not healthy. It just creates more problems. It makes them worry about things in life they shouldn't even be worrying about. They should be worrying about school and learning how to be a capable, kind citizen. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Those are the things they should be worried about. They shouldn't be worried about any of these causes, any of these social causes, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether up here in Canada it's this whole peace and reconciliation stuff. And I saw a tweet today, some kid had to write, some little kid is writing, a 7-year-old is writing about how the peace and reconciliation is about past things that white people did to natives. You're 7 years old. You have nothing to do with it. So all of this stuff should be moved out and we should get back to normalcy. And of course, there's still going to be people that fall into these categories, and that's fine. If you're a grown man, grown woman, do whatever you want. No one cares. But when you get into the kids, people get angry. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, to the channel. Feel free to check anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.